inside every one of us, there exists a dark side. Most people rise above it, but some are consumed by it.
Michael?
Until there is nothing left but pure evil.
Behind these eyes, one finds only darkness. These are the eyes of a psychopath.
This August, Rob Zombie unleashes an extreme vision of terror and reinvents a legend. Halloween.
Hey guys, welcome to Horror Week on theReelDVDwatchers. Today I'm going to be reviewing, for the conclusion of this themed week, Halloween, the 2007 Rob Zombie remake of the 1978, I believe, slasher horror classic Halloween, which was in that case directed by John Carpenter. This remake, as I mentioned before, is directed by Rob Zombie, who's known for films like House of a Thousand Corpses. It is a reboot because it doesn't just remake the film, it takes a lot of the same elements and adds something new to it. And in this case, Rob Zombie has decided to incorporate a little backstory of Michael Myers' character, giving him a little history and giving you some insight into why he becomes this murdering psychopath. The Halloween franchise was like most horror franchises that have lasted so long today. It was beginning to die, and Rob Zombie believed that they needed to make Michael Myers a truly horrifying character once again, as opposed to the goofy, stock-like character that he had been becoming. And so with this reboot, it was an attempt to reintroduce Michael Myers to a new generation of filmgoers, and also make him into the icon of fear that he was before. This film, as I mentioned before, delves into the backstory of Michael Myers as a troubled child and his family's not so easy life, and how that helps him grow into the killer we know him to become. A lot of fans complain two things about this backstory, is that it's very cliched, having the whole, I hate to use the term, white trash family. You know, all you can think about that is wrong with that family is wrong with it, and it's really just a lot of criticism is that's so cliched and that's so been there, done that, that of course, oh, he has a crappy family life, of course he's going to go insane. I would have to agree that it's not really an interesting route, it's not really new. It's sort of a little taking the easy route, saying, well, Michael Myers became a psychopath because his family was nuts. But in that sense, that whole backstory for me, as far as that aspect goes, was actually riveting. I thought Sheri Zombie, who plays Michael Myers' mother, I thought she did a brilliant performance, actually. It's one of my favorite performances in that film, if not the best. I thought she did a really great job just playing probably one of the more sane characters in that family. Because she actually does seem to genuinely care for the family in spite of its lunacy, if you will, and her motherly instincts do come across very well, I found, through her performance.
When'd you make this?
Just yesterday. I like the mask because it hides my face.
I don't like you to hide your face. Take it off.
It hides my ugliness.
Sweetie, don't say that. Take it off. You're not ugly. Don't talk like that, okay? Okay.
One other thing I like about the backstory is when you get to see Michael Myers in the, I don't remember what it is, insane asylum or whatever, and his interactions with Dr. Samuel Loomis, who in this film is played by Malcolm McDowell, not to be confused with Malcolm McDonald. That stuff, I can't really explain why I found that interesting. I think it was partly because of the just seeing Michael Myers start as a normal kid and slowly and slowly and slowly descend more into just a pure evil monster. And then Malcolm McDowell's performance, which to me, I might get a lot of heat for this, but I thought Malcolm McDowell's performances was much better than Donald Pleasance's. Donald Pleasance's wasn't bad. For me, Malcolm McDowell just had a different feel and tone to it. I kind of found more real. That's just my opinion, though.
I want to just go home.
I'm afraid you can't go home.
Why?
Because you've done terrible things. Come on. It's okay, Michael.
Those things really, I was just interested in seeing all that psychology of how this young man becomes a psychotic killer with no emotion and no real sense of right and wrong. That stuff was interesting to me. One of the complaints that this backstory is given is that it takes away from the mystery of Michael Myers. I did not see the original before I saw this film, so to me this really did have no effect. I did go into this movie watching it as its own thing. I didn't have the original to compare it to. I didn't have the original to play favors with, if you will. I just watched this as it was for what it was, and that backstory to me was interesting, and I can't really say it took away from the mystery because I was never really introduced to the mystery beforehand, if you can understand what I mean. Then it gets into a pretty much just straight off remake of the original film where he's killing teenagers and going after Laurie Strode, who in this film is played by Scout Taylor-Compton, and she's taking over the role that was originally played by Jamie Lee Curtis. These two versions of the characters are much different. Well, not much different. They're both still, as far as their social group of friends goes, the more mature and less wild ones. Although Laurie Strode in this version of the film is a little bit more open, I guess. That's going to come across the wrong way, but I hope you know what I mean. She's less of the little shy, bookish nerd that Laurie Strode was in the original Halloween film. Scout Taylor-Compton's performance, I think, is fine. It's nothing great. It's nothing really fantastic. It's just fine for what it is, which for the most part, as far as the rest of the movie goes, aside from Malcolm McDowell, is really how I feel about the rest of the performances. There's really not a lot being asked from them other than to be really scared, which they do a good job of. I think one of the things that the film does well for me is, yes, the teenagers are all about sex and, you know, sneaking around and all that stuff. But I like the fact that they didn't really do it in an over-the-top fashion. It's like, that's not what it was all about. Like, there was a little bit more to it, I found. Well, not more to it, just not like to that. I just meant the movie had more going for it than just the teenagers running around drinking up and having sex, which to me is just it's really annoying. Horror is not my thing, and that's one of the reasons, because it's the biggest cliche in horror film, in the genre, and I was really glad that they didn't really do too much with that. The music. One of the best things that this film does is stick to the original theme music that we used in the 1978 film, that iconic horror score. And I think, whereas Batman Begins, being a reboot, didn't incorporate the score, it was becoming a completely different thing as compared to the original things that I don't think would have fit in. Whereas here, Batman is more of a character who's changed a lot through the time. So to change him, but keep the core essence of what that character is acceptable. Whereas Michael Myers, I know I'm going to get a lot of heat. I might get a lot of heat from this from horror fans, but there really isn't that much to him. He's just a psycho killing machine with a William Shatner mask on, who kills people. And so to really try and change up the music would really just be, I think, a little bit too much. So I think it was a really wise decision keeping the original score. That said, I do get a lot of scares and jumps and a fair share of thrills from this film. I thought it was a really good film. I think it's one of the better reboots, remakes out there. And I think that I may have not given enough credit to the performances. They're not horrible, awful performances. They're just fine, with the exception of Malcolm McDowell, who I thought was really good, and Sheri Zombie. The film, as far as going back to the original, I prefer the original after I saw it. But this film is not without its perks. I liked the backstory, as I mentioned before. And really, if you have not seen the original and you go into this film is fine enough. The original, I find, has a little bit better way of style, as far as the style goes, of shooting it. It has a little bit more creativity as far as that goes. But really, this film is not a horrible film at all. In fact, I think it's a good film. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, in fact. So, there you go. That presents the conclusion to Horror Week on the Real DVD Watchers. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you guys next week. Tomorrow is Scotty, and he reviews whatever.